Is kerosene heat part of your plan to be prepared? If not, it should be. Hi, my name is John, and you're watching the Olive Drab Alliance. Thank you very much for clicking on the video. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at two common types of kerosene heaters. We're going to look at how I go about acquiring the actual kerosene fuel to fuel these heaters, and talk a little bit about how to store that kerosene long term. So, stick around. You're not going to want to miss this. In the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, we saw images of total and complete destruction. Everything was destroyed, from the roads, the utilities, people's houses. It was a level of destruction we haven't seen in many, many years. Now, after that disaster, we saw also an outpouring of support, monetary donations, and donated goods sent into the area from the people of the United States and all around the world. Among those supplies, you saw bottled water, you saw clothing, food, baby formula, anything and everything that we thought we could send down there to help, we sent. And one thing that I couldn't help but notice were the boxes and boxes of kerosene heaters. Now, when this hurricane hit, it was not a cold time of the year. In North Carolina, is generally considered to be a warm state, but they do have winters down there. And winters can be brutal. So, knowing full well and good that not everything would be fixed and repaired by the time winter hit, the kerosene heaters being sent down there were a must. And I imagine today, on a night like tonight, that those kerosene heaters are still being put to good use and providing warmth and comfort to the people who suffered the horrible tragedy down there. You know, when I think of off-grid situations, I generally tend to think of two different types. There's the type of off-grid situation that you chose to put yourself into, whether it's going camping or you have a cabin out in the woods somewhere. These would be a great heater for an off-grid cabin, by the way. And then there's the off-grid situations or the grid-down situations that you had no say in the matter, whether it was war or natural disaster or man-caused disaster. You might find yourself being put into an off-grid situation through those means as well. Again, a kerosene heater is an option that you should consider. Now, would I take a kerosene heater over a wood stove? No, I wouldn't. But there's a lot of situations where a wood stove just isn't a possibility or not an option, or you might live in a place that doesn't have any trees. Maybe you live in the desert. Maybe you live in a place where it's too cold for trees to grow. I don't know, but wood stoves, just like kerosene stoves, are dependent on your ability to get fuel for them. Now, you can store kerosene, the fuel that runs these heaters, for years and years. They say 2 to 5 years, probably a little longer if you use an additive. We'll get into that later. But if you store it properly, it could definitely store long term. And they say a gallon of kerosene converts into as many BTUs, British thermal units, as a wheelbarrow full of firewood. In fact, if you were going to run an electric generator and convert that electricity into heat, which is a very inefficient thing to do, converting electricity into heat, it would take 5 gallons of gasoline to run a generator to produce as many BTUs as 1 gallon of kerosene. So very efficient, very clean, relatively inexpensive fuel, not cheaper than gas currently, but it's easy enough to acquire. It's easy enough to store. Why wouldn't you consider kerosene heat? I would consider it probably my number one prep, but I live in a cold climate. Right now outside it's below freezing, and the nights get pretty cold. So kerosene to me, when you consider, fire, shelter, food, water, I got that kind of mixed up. Fire, shelter, water, food. Here's my fire right here. I hopefully will still have my shelter, my home in place, but without utilities, without that natural gas coming in to run my furnace, this is my number one backup. And speaking of fuel, if you've gone to Walmart or if you've gone to any big box store, you've probably seen those gallon jugs of K1 kerosene for an ungodly amount of money. I'm going to show you how I got mine for much cheaper, probably much less than half of what those gallons in the big box store cost. So check out this clip. Here I am at the Conoco gas station in beautiful Linden, Illinois. We're lucky to have this, Conoco, because they still sell kerosene. Most gas stations near me don't offer kerosene. It's probably the case near you as well. But the setup here is pretty simple. There's a big holding tank on the side of the building. There's an old school looking pump. You just lift up on the handle of the pump and it rings a bell inside and it lets them know to turn the pump on. Some places like this that sell kerosene, you actually have to go inside before you can pump it and let them know that you're looking to get kerosene and they'll turn the pump on. Other places, there might even be a padlock on the pump and you got to get the key or they'll come outside and unlock it. Today I paid $5.80 per gallon for kerosene, which is a lot cheaper than those gallon jugs at the big box stores. So a little over 5 gallons cost me about $30. Now, as I mentioned, it takes 5 gallons of gasoline to create as many BTUs as 1 gallon of kerosene. So when you're considering storing fuel long term, obviously the benefits go toward the kerosene. You've only got to store a fifth as many gallons. And it stores, instead of 6-7 months like gasoline, kerosene will store for years. If you're going to store it long term, you're going to want to look into additives. So check this clip out. Now, if you're going to store kerosene long term, kerosene is supposed to be good 2 to 5 years, but if you're going to store it for that long, and if you live in a place with wild temperature swings, for example, where I live, it can be 25 below zero in the winter, it can be 110 in the summer. Well, those are the cases for you. You might want to consider a kerosene additive like this one from Tractor Supply. Looks like it's running about $4 for a little bottle there. It says it's a heat fuel additive that helps reduce kerosene odors that are released when used. It reduces tar and carbon that can build up over time. It keeps wicks cleaner and improves the life cycle because of the cleanliness of the wick. And it also removes water content, which is what you're looking for if you're going to store this stuff long term. And hey, if you're enjoying the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't yet. Shame on you. Go ahead and subscribe. It won't hurt you. Also, please feel free to leave a comment. I do read all the comments. Lately, I've not been able to reply to them all, but I really try to be active in the comment section. There's a lot going on here at home, so I do read all your comments and I appreciate them as well. So let's take a look at this guy. I was prepared to go out and spend $150, $160 on a brand new one of these. But I lucked out. I got on the Facebook Marketplace, which reminds me, you can find Olive Drab Alliance on Facebook. Go ahead and send me a friend request. But I found this on the Marketplace. The guy had it listed for $10. So I messaged him. I'm like, hey, does this work? I hate to look a gift horse in the mouth, but, it was about a 45-minute drive away. And he said, it worked when I put it away. The typical Facebook Marketplace response. And I said, heck, all right, hey, buddy, for $10, I'll take a chance on it. He goes, I tell you what, if you're willing to take a chance on it, you can have it. Just come and get it. So I did, and I brought it home, and I checked if there was actually fuel in it. Who knows how old it is? That fuel, I didn't ask how long it had been in storage for, but it fired right up. Now, my first inclination was to hit this ignite button. Nothing happens. It could be that it just needs some new batteries in it to give it a spark. It could be that, like every other kerosene heater, including the big one that I was sitting next to, the little igniter switches, they almost never, ever work. Or they work for a little while, and then they break, and you got to figure out something else. But I got you. Stick around. I'm going to show you how to get around all that. Let's go ahead and open this guy up. So you see inside here, they got this little spring-looking thing. Most kerosene heaters have, it looks like a little spring. I think they do that so it cools off faster. If you just crank the knob up all the way to the light position, that raises the wick up. Just lift up on that little spring thing there, just to lift up that metal part, exposing where the wick's at. Give it a light. This one's smoking pretty good, so I'm just going to dial the wick down a little bit after it gets going here. So this guy here has a 1 1/4 gallon fuel tank, and it'll burn through that fuel tank about every 10 to 12 hours. So 2.5 gallons per day is what this is going to do in fuel. It's going to kick out about 10,000 BTUs. So a 5-gallon can of fuel will give you 2 days of 10,000 BTU heat. This big guy over here has a 1.9 gallon fuel tank, so a 2-gallon tank. It kicks out 23,000 BTUs, and it'll run for about 10 to 12 hours on that 2-gallon tank. So a 5-gallon can of kerosene is going to let you run this guy for a day and a couple hours. So 5 gallons here will get you 2 days. 5 gallons here will get you 1 day. 10,000 BTUs, 23,000 BTUs. Now, I'm no mathematician, but you could run 2 of these for a total of 20,000 BTUs on the same amount of fuel it takes you to run 1 of these, 23,000 BTUs. But I can put 1 of these guys at one part of the house and 1 in a different part, where this one I'm just going to kind of put in a central location, meaning that central location is going to be really warm, but as you move away from it, it's going to be chilly. If I had 2 of these, I could warm probably a larger area in between the 2 heaters, as long as they weren't spaced out that far. Just something to consider. So unlike a lot of other heaters out there, kerosene heat only has 1 setting, full blast. You know, where some of your other electric heaters might have a low, medium, high. Kerosene heat has pretty much 1 setting, and that's high. Now, maybe the camera picked it up, maybe it didn't, but when I first lit this thing up, had a lot of black smoke coming out. Now, you can see, like I said, there's only 1 setting. You can only very slightly adjust the wick. Maybe a 1/4 of an inch either way. If you're getting that black smoke, that means your wick is set too high. I can see it coming out now. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. What you don't want to see is those flames coming up over the top. So I'm going to adjust that wick down and no more black smoke. So if you're getting black smoke coming out of your kerosene heater, if you can do some minor adjustments to the wick, lower that wick as much as you can. Both of these kerosene heaters have manual shutoffs. See this switch right here? On the square one, it's a button. Now what that does is once you raise the wick up into the light position or in the run position, if I hit this switch, it drops it all the way back down, turning the heater off. I should mention that it might continue to burn for a few minutes once you do that, but it'll go out. So this one's actually running. You can see it's red hot. I'm going to go ahead and push the shut off button. And maybe you caught it, maybe you didn't. That spun around. It lowered the wick all the way down. And already it's not glowing hot, but I can hear the flame flickering in there. And that metal's going to be hot for quite a while. So let the flame go out. Let the metal cool down. But it will turn off. So do you have a kerosene heater? If not, I highly recommend you get one. Like I said, it's a nice radiant heat. It warms you all the way through. The fuel stores easy. These are relatively inexpensive. The fuel, like I said, it costs more than gasoline, but you don't have to pay the big box store prices for that individual jug. You can find a place more than likely near you that sells kerosene. Do you have a kerosene heater? Let me know in the comments. Do you use it regularly to heat your home? Do you use it for other things? It can be used for lighting, all sorts of other things, cooking. Have you been thinking about getting one, but you've just been a little nervous? Well, I'm here to tell you it's not that bad. And I believe that if you found a way to be able to click on this video, then you have the wherewithal to be able to figure out how to run one of these heaters. Just make sure you follow all the safety precautions and instructions, right? So friends, that's about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you all down the trail somewhere. Until then, have a great day.